All right. Good morning, Austin. I'm not sure what's going on. We're coming at you live, December 26th, 1999, and we're having technical problems here. We got people running around circles behind the camera here and everything else, so please bear with us. This is the Atheist Experience. My name is Ray Blevins, my co-host Jeff D, and today's guest is Manda, Jeff's wife. Also, she's also a member of our group. And she's brought several little things. She's at this here, and I'll let her get all into that. But it answers a lot of questions that we've been getting on a lot of calls about. So,
what is the nature of our technical problems we're having?
I'm not sure what's going on here. I guess the crew can't hear each other talk.
Crew can't hear each other, but we're going out. Okay.
And again, just remind everyone this is live, December 26th. Welcome to the World Wide Web. We're going out there on the web too. I hope we got some long distance viewers out there. That is our number, 512-472-2255 for live atheist chat, basically.
And for those of you who have friends that might be interested in watching the show, tell them they can pick us up on the internet on spring.net.
Thank you. Yes. Or if you're in Austin and you don't have Time Warner, that's another way to get the show.
Yeah, but then you're not hearing us right now.
Yes. Just to remind everyone, the Atheist Community of Austin meets every Sunday down at the Hot Jumble Bakery. So as we're done here, we head down to West 5th and Lavaca. And this is just a friendly social gathering of several atheists here in Austin. And they're still working in the backgrounds here. Sorry, I lost my attention there to the crew in the background. But the first Sunday of every month, we do our guest speaker series, which goes at Furs at North Cross Mall.
Yeah, come wait right
and it looks like we're getting thumbs up from the crew. That's a good sign. Next week is actually going to be a panel discussion.
You're back home. Okay, this is
promoting atheists. We're going to have like 5 people on the panel.
all right.
And we'll be taking.
Okay, yeah, you're coming in.
Doing a lot of discussion about raising kids and ways to promote atheists in a positive light and things
How
like
to promote atheism.
atheism.
Or whether we should. That's going to be the discussion.
Right, excellent point. Or whether, how much we should, or whether or not we should even do it.
And I might be on that panel. I volunteered, but I never heard back.
We can hear you.
So I'm going to be out of town next week,
Okay,
so I'm not going to be here on the show.
It's going to be
so
me and Vic.
Yes.
And Arlo will be
our guest next week. And
Sure you could.
from my understanding, he's got a lot to do with Revelations there. He's been doing a lot of research on it and I think that'd be perfect timing right there at the beginning of the new year there. Yes. So, and then January 8th is our Life of Brian party. That's going to be at Don Rhodes' house. And so anybody wants any more information, you come down to the Hot Jumble Bakery and we'll give you directions and everything like that.
And if you think you've seen Life of Brian enough times already, come anyway, because this time we got it on DVD with all kinds of extra stuff.
Yes. Thanks to Martin there. We appreciate that. And that's basically it. News for the group, and that's all I can think of. I did bring in one news article before I hand over news articles to Jeff here. This is the front page of today's Austin American Statesman. I guess I'm going to,
I'll let you do it.
leave it there. Putting faith in their futures. And so I had to buy that when I saw that. Basically what it's talking about faith-based groups getting money to help with social programs. This is Brenham, Texas. And it's going through there talking about a 12-week course designed to transfer welfare recipients into reliable, God-fearing workers who can command more than a minimum wage. Lawhorn pulls the Mighty Man of Valor line from the Bible, the only required text of the course. If this is supposed to be a secular, non-religious training, there seems like there'd be a lot more books available to these people, and certain required reading beyond the Bible. I don't think
the Bible shouldn't be there at all.
Right. It shouldn't even.
We should not be. Federal funds should, or state funds should not be going to something where you are required to read the Bible.
But
I love my B-I-B-L-E.
You could You could justify that if you were required to read every single piece of religious literature from every religion that existed, but that would be ridiculous.
But then you go back, then it's a whole entire page. So I'm not going to go read the whole entire page to you, of course. But you're going to do some highlights here. It says the Department of Human Services kicks in $8,000 of the program's $20,000 annual budget, paying the bulk of the salary for Reverend George Nelson earns for running it. So the state is paying this reverend's salary.
Ugh.
How much? So I'm wondering how much less the church has to pay his salary now that they're getting, this $8,000 or whatever from the state. Now, if their total budget now is $8,000 less,
It doesn't matter.
I think it's kind of fishy there, yes. But then you go on down, and it mentions, as Governor Bush took advantage of the changes in federal law to encourage Texas Social Service Agency to contract with religious groups, and has promised that as president, he would give tax dollars to community and faith-based groups to address social programs. Vice President Al Gore, the Democratic frontrunner, has made similar pledge. If either man is elected president, it is likely that taxpayer dollars will be used to support many more programs like this.
Ugh.
And then one last point. The provision, little notice when it was first passed, allows state to give money to religious groups to provide job training and other services to former welfare recipients as long as there are secular alternatives. I'm going to do the research. I'm going to find out if there are any secular. And it seems to me if there's no secular, then they should be stopping the program.
Yeah.
Because that's the way I read that. But this is only my interpretation of someone else's interpretation of the law. So I'm going to have to, definitely do some research and find out if they're even allowed to do that. And see, and if we had our own building, we could be in there getting this money. And I couldn't resist putting that in there. That's an inside joke. Sorry about that, folks. All right, that's it for my little bit of news. And I just wanted to let you know how our front-running candidates are thinking on that. And that's pretty scary. And so we need to continually research the candidates and where they stand. And I'd love to hear from any callers out there that think that is a good reason to vote for Bush or Gore. Or if this would stop you from... Because most atheists are going to look at this and use this as a reason not to vote for him.
The problem, of course, is that it's not just Bush and Gore.
Right.
Every single one of the major party candidates has come out in favor of this. Every single one.
Unfortunately, you're right.
And in every single case, it's a direct violation of the separation clause in the Constitution. So people are not left with a whole lot of choices. If you don't want this to happen, folks, you got to speak up. You got to let the politicians know that, in fact, this is not just a cheap way to get a bunch of votes, that they're really annoying a lot of people and violating the Constitution by coming up with this idea. Then maybe some of them will back away from it.
And they're actually buying votes now. I bet you all these people in that church are going to be voting for Bush or whatever else. So it seems like they're almost buying the religious vote there, almost with our tax money.
Yep.
All right. You brought some interesting science news in.
Yeah. Well, I got a bunch of stuff. Let me just take it from the top.
Sure.
Yesterday, of course, was that big secular holiday called Christmas that has origins in religion, but we all know that it's about a jolly fat man in a red suit who comes down the chimney and gives kids presents. I happened to be out trying to find a place to eat on Christmas Day, and wound up at a Jack in the Box and got recognized again by one of our viewers on Christmas Day, which was kind of cool.
Yes.
And I just want to thank all of you out there that are watching this show and supporting us and coming up and saying nice things to us when you see us in public, because we really appreciate it. Last week we had the first meeting of our new spin-off group from the ACA, which is the Godless Gamers. I noticed that a lot of people in the atheist community of Austin also like to play board games or card games or role-playing games, and we've been looking around for other things that we can do together socially, and I suggested this Godless Gamers idea, last week, everything came together. A whole bunch of people came to me at the meeting at the bagel shop and said, yeah, we want to do this. So we actually met last Wednesday, had 6 people there, played a couple of games, talked about what we want to do in future, and there's been a lot more interest on our mailing list from other people that probably didn't show up just because of the short notice. So that looks like that's going to be a real going concern. An interesting thing that happened is I also announced this group on the internet on various games-related news groups. And in addition to the flame war that erupted between atheist gamers and theist gamers on the various news groups, with the theists charging that having a group called Godless Gamers meant that, oh, this is a group you can't join unless you're unless you cast off your belief in God, and they're proselytizing atheism. Well, no. The other atheists, I didn't even have to say this. The other atheists that were reading the news groups jumped in and said, "Well, no, it's like, you know, if you had a church group and in your or you went to a church and the church decided that we're also going to have potluck. You know, does that mean you have to become a Christian to eat their food? Well, kind of, sort of, but it doesn't mean they're proselytizing. They've got an existing group and they're doing other things together, and that's what this is. But even more interesting is after I announced this on the internet, I got an email from a company that sells games over the internet. I can't mention their names, but if you want the information, I can give it to you. You can call our voicemail number, or come to the bagel shop, or attend one of the Godless Gamers meetings. But this company will give a 5% discount on their products to anybody who orders from them and identifies themselves as a Godless Gamer. So that was cool. Stuff in the news. The Hubble telescope. I hope everybody's been watching this story on CNN. After numerous delays, they managed to get the space shuttle up there, and on a limited, trimmed-down schedule, they made all the repairs they had to make to that fine instrument. I'm sure we've all seen the amazingly cool photographs that have come back from space from this thing. And in fact, the word is that these components have improved it. Like, for example, they upgraded its onboard computer from something that resembles a 1970s era computer to something that resembles a 1980s era computer. This is
so it's Y2K compliant now?
Well, no, it's still 20 years behind. No, I assume they solved that problem. Crew member Steve Smith said he was struck by the beauty and apparent fragility of Earth as seen from space. It looks like one global community. It looks like an island in an ocean, and if you live on an island, you really have to be at peace with your neighbors, he said. Halfway through its 20-year life expectancy, the Hubble already has helped to rewrite the book on the age and size of the universe with 259,000 images it has transmitted back to Earth. Senior Hubble scientist Dave Lacrone said the best days are still ahead for the telescope. In related news, the European Space Agency has also launched its own space telescope. This is an X-ray telescope that's up there, and it's moving into the proper orbit, and in March it's supposed to start providing images.
There it goes.
Launching some rockets there.
Yes.
Thanks, Arlo.
That's putting up our own.
Ashes of 36 people hurled into space.
I've seen that too. I think that's a great idea.
36 capsules of cremated human remains were launched into orbit for a 45-year ride in orbit. The lipstick-sized containers, each holding 7 ounces or 200 grams, for those of you on metric, soared into space from Vandenberg Air Force Base aboard a Taurus rocket late Monday night. The tubes are expected to remain in orbit for about 45 years before they re-enter the Earth's atmosphere and burn up. Of course, the remains are already burnt up, but...
I think a more poetic would be to aim it towards the sun and just let it go into the sun and burn up in the sun. Instead
it takes a lot more energy to lift yourself out of orbit, though.
Well, they're already... I didn't think it'd take that much more to go,
yeah, take a bigger rock.
So you can be burn again.
The cost That was a good one. The cost of sending ashes into space is $4,800 per deceased, cheaper than Earth burial, spokeswoman Susan Schoenfeld said from Houston-based Celestis Incorporated, which arranges the launches. The first payload by Celestis was April 21, 1997, when the remains of guru and pop icon Timothy Leary and Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry were flung into orbit with 22 others. Ashes from 30 people were launched into space on October 3, 1998. This time there were cremated remains from China, Germany, Japan, and the United States. What a magnificent view was the epitaph for Omer Derry of Denver, who was 72 when he died of cancer on February 22nd and had always dreamed of one day traveling in space. As I told the grandchildren, he'll be stardust. They really liked that idea, to see the stars twinkle and think it might be Granddad, his widow Merlene said in her tribute posted on the Celestis website. Jellyfish DNA transferred to monkey embryo. This is a long story. I'm just going to sum up. They have successfully inserted jellyfish DNA into fertilized monkey eggs, and produced embryos, monkey embryos, which glowed under the same conditions that jellyfish emit a bioluminescent glow. The effect did not last through the monkey's birth. And unlike, now there was a previous thing with mice, right? And you were telling me that the skin on the mice still glowed, but the hair covered it up. That does not seem to be the case with the monkeys. So they're trying to figure out what that is. But it's more progress in genetic engineering. And of course, the bioethicists are up in arms saying, playing God, well, somebody has to.
It gives the impression that somebody had the wacky idea of let's make some glow-in-the-dark monkeys. The point of it was to track what happens to cells from an embryo to see if they really last, to see if the lineage continues.
They wanted to give the embryos a trait that they could identify that had actually been passed on.
Right.
And this allowed them to, I don't know if they shined black light or what they did, but when they got the fluorescent effect from the embryos, they knew that they had successfully transferred the gene. And so, yeah, it's not about making glowing monkeys. It's about
much as we like those.
It's about passing on traits in general. And the more we can do that, the better, because there are tons and tons of diseases that are genetic in nature and kill people. So that's that. Do you want to take a call before I move on to the Rapture report?
He's been on hold for a while. Let's try it. And let's see if the phones are working. John?
No, this is Don.
Don.
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm sitting here watching you.
I appreciate you hanging on all that time.
I do this every Sunday morning. I watch you.
Oh, really? Thank you.
I was kind of interested in the article in the paper this morning. I read it, and it really teed me off. My money used to spread religion throughout the state.
Exactly.
Yeah, for courses that require Bible reading.
Oh yeah.
And no other kind of reading.
Yeah, and I was wondering, my car, I'd like to have a new Lincoln, and wonder if George Bush would finance that for me. That's my religion, and I said that this morning, and a few people frowned at me, Oh, yeah. So. No, I think you guys are doing a good job. I'm going to come down there one of these days. I'm an old man, but I've always, religion went out the window when I was 16 years old when I went to the military and found out what the rest of the world was like. And so, do the best job you can. So,
will this news article affect your voting?
Oh, I never wanted George Bush in the way. Anyway, I couldn't figure out what he'd done for Texas. He sure as hell hadn't done anything for anybody but walk around and say that he got off drugs and he got reborn again,
Yes.
And I still haven't figured out what reborn means.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you calling, and looking forward to meeting you someday.
Yeah.
All right, you have a great week.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, let's go.
That reminds me, have you ever noticed how many fundamentalists will talk about their former drug use?
Yes.
Now, is there something about the tendency to want to get involved in drugs that is similar to the tendency to want to believe in a God? Or is there something about drug use that primes people for belief in God?
No, wait, I want to add to this. Every church I've ever been to, at the beginning of every sermon, they brag about how a huge number of their followers were ex-drug users.
Right.
they'll say 80% of us used to use drugs, and the other 20 still are, and it's just
I don't know.
They don't say that, but
Yeah, how about just, not play chemical games with your brain in the first place?
But back to the required reading. I understand, helping these people learn to read or whatever, but the Bible is such a poor choice on if you're going to learn to read, because it's usually...
Wasn't that what was the social service that was being provided by that outfit anyway?
Oh, they're getting them ready for job training. It was
getting them ready for job training.
Yeah,
they're not actually training them for any jobs unless that job is minister.
No, but the term that they used here was the 12-week course designed to transform BREEAM's welfare recipients and perennial underemployed into reliable, God-fearing workers who can command more than a minimum wage.
Because that's the main thing you want when you hire somebody, is you want to make sure they're God.
Hallelujah.
What is that?
But it's such a poor choice on teaching anyone to read, because it's using language that we don't use on every day. It's very, it's just a very hard book to read. If you're going to learn how to read, you would definitely.
Is that what they are claiming? They're requiring Bible reading just so people will learn how to read?
No, I didn't.
Maybe they're teaching them Greek and Latin.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they're leaving out. There's something we're missing here.
God-fearing workers.
I'm not buying it, and neither should you.
No, the employer is whoever is paying your salary.
All right, just to remind everyone, this is December 26th, 1999. We are live. I'd like to hear your phone calls. And speaking of dates, Jeff's going to now do our
Rapture report. It's a biggie this time because, of course, our next show will be in the year 2000.
Thank you.
I really want to say 2000, Ray, if I'm just counting.
What about at 2010?
If I say 1999, then I say 2000.
But you don't. You say 1999.
Yeah. But what difference? It's a number. I say all my numbers, whatever is most convenient.
What are you going to say when it's 2010? You going to say 2010?
Yes.
It's 2010.
That's what the Arthur C. Clarke movie was called, is 2001, and then the next one was called 2010.
All right, well, go ahead. Say whatever you want. I'll be saying 20.
Well, anyway, needless to say, Jesus once again did not return from the grave on his 1998th birthday, since there wasn't a year 0, right? He was supposed to have been born in the year 1. Is that correct?
No, it would be the first month of the first year.
What would?
The January. Say he was born December or whatever.
Yeah.
That month would be the first month of the first year. It wouldn't be the first month of 0 year. It'd be the first. You see what I'm saying? So the year is not over until those 12 months have passed.
Right,
so
I know. That's why I'm saying it's 1,998 years.
Okay, you're right.
Right? Because he was born in the year labeled 1. There wasn't a year 0.
Right. And then but go ahead. I'm sorry.
So whatever. Despite the fact that 1,998 is, yeah, we know that too.
It's a 4B.
Yeah, it should have been, of course, because it is known historically that the Herod who was supposed to have tried to get all the babies executed that year died in what is called the year 4 BC, BCE. That our calendars are off by at least 4 years, which means Jesus would be 4 years older, which would put us at 2002 years of Jesus. Forget all that, okay? We could go around forever with this nitpicking. The point is, for whatever reason, there were some nitwits out there, specifically Doomsday Prophet Martin Hunter, who predicted that December 5th, yesterday, Jesus was going to return and kick off the apocalypse. Didn't happen. Once again, let's chalk that one up as failed. Now, there are, of course, several pending apocalypse predictions that we're still waiting for this year. Sometime in 1999, the end of the world according to some Seventh-day Adventists. The end of the world according to the Jehovah's Witnesses. An apocalyptic battle followed by peace as per a vision of George Washington. The height of the Antichrist's power when a terrible Holocaust will occur as foreseen by astrologer Gene Dixon. A pole shift causing natural disasters and World War III according to the sleeping prophet Edgar Casey. and the end of the world according to linguist credophile Charles Berlitz, as predicted in his book Doomsday 1999 AD. Those are all things that were supposed to happen sometime this year. And the clock is ticking. There's 6 days left.
Not much time to have a nuclear holocaust, is it?
That's right. Well, you know, I suppose it really will only take a day, but the number of possible days is running out. Sometime specifically in 1999, we were supposed to have the second coming, according to Monty Kim Miller of the Cult Concerned Christians. These are the guys that have twice, I think they were kicked out of Jerusalem twice and Greece once. Their cult leader, Monty Kim Miller, claims that he will die in Jerusalem and be resurrected 3 days later. He's got till the end of this month to get that done. Specifically, on December 31st, Hong Min Cheng's cult, God's Salvation Church, now relocated to upstate New York, preaches that a nuclear holocaust will destroy Europe and Asia sometime between October 1 and December 31st, 1999. Well, that's just all the ones that are supposed to happen by the 31st. But since our next show is going to be on the 2nd of 2000,
Right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm going to have to start talking about all the stuff that might happen before our next show. And so buckle up, Apocalypse Files, because here they come. Sometime in 2000. Of course, there's something about all those zeros that makes 2000 a favorite year among doomsday prophets. It promises to be a fascinating spectacle with loonies of all descriptions coming out of the woodwork, prophesying raptures, Armageddons, apocalypses, plagues, comets, second comings, pole shifts, earth changes, and doomsdays. There are far too many to list specifically, but here are some of the more notable predictions that are supposed to generally happen sometime in 2000. Hal Lindsey, whose 1988 prediction failed, suggests the end in his recently published book entitled Planet Earth 2000 AD. However, he leaves himself a face-saving outlet. Could I be wrong? Of course, the rapture may not occur between now and the year 2000. Then why bring it up? If you think that it's going to happen, say so. If you don't, shut up and stop scaring people.
He was one of the ones that reminded me when you brought up the Rapture report here or whatever.
Right.
60 Minutes. Did you get to see the show too?
No.
I watched it. None of them were Yeah, Hal Lindsey was the main guest. But none of them were stupid enough to say an exact date on tape. And so
of course, they all see it coming. They're all going to look like a bunch of nitwits. I think we need to remember that they, at one point, did give specific dates and not allow them to immediately go into backpedal mode to protect their reputations. Their reputations deserve to be utterly destroyed by saying these stupid things.
He has his own followers and everything. It's like his own church going there. And, yes.
The beginning of Christ's millennium, according to some Mormon literature, such as the publication Watch and Be Ready, Preparing for the Second Coming of the Lord, the New Jerusalem will descend from the heavens in the year 2000, landing in Independence, Missouri. What, all of New Jerusalem is, what is it, a spaceship? Somebody's mic is not working. Backwards.
There, is it better now?
Oh, that's better.
Is it better? I'm sorry. I'm not even on the mic. So
We're getting hand signals still.
Yeah.
Are we done?
We'll continue.
Okay.
We'll take
So there's the New Jerusalem landing in Independence, Missouri. 19th century mystic Madame Helena Petrova Blavatsky, founder of the Theosophical movement, foresaw the end of the world in the year 2000. Even Sir Isaac Newton was bitten by the millennium bug. He predicted that Christ's millennium would begin in the year 2000 in his book Observations upon the Prophecies of Daniel and the Apocalypse of St. John. Ruth Montgomery predicts Earth's axis will shift and the Antichrist will reveal himself in 2000. The establishment of the Kingdom of Heaven, according to the Reverend Sun Young Moon. The Second Coming, followed by a New Age, according to Edgar Casey. Once again, didn't he already? Oh, that's right. He predicted the pole shift and the natural disasters in World War III for this year. Next year, according to Edgar Casey, comes a new Jesus. The second coming, as forecasted in Ed Dobson's book, The End, Why Jesus Could Return in AD 2000. Well, he could, if he existed, he could return anytime, right? Why write a book about it unless you're really claiming that you figured it out? The End of the World, according to Lester Sumrall in his book, I Predict 2000. Yeah, he's not making any, he's not waffling. No, and so at the end of 2000, he gets to wear a dunce cap. The tribulation is to occur before the year 2000, said Gordon Lindsay, founder of the Christ for the Nations ministry. According to a series of lectures given by Shoko Ashara in 1992, 90% of the world's population would be annihilated by nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons by the year 2000. One of the earliest predictions for the year 2000 was made by Petrus Olivi in 1297. He wrote that the Antichrist would come to power between 1300 and 1340, and the Last Judgment would take place around the year 2000. According to American Indian spiritual leader Sun Bear, the end of the world would come in the year 2000 if the human race didn't shape up.
Giving himself that out there, yes.
I guess we've shaped up if it doesn't, according to Sun Bear.
Yes.
Well, I would count not using nuclear weapons as shaping up.
There you go, yes, good one. Yes.
18th century fire and brimstone preacher Jonathan Edwards concluded that Christ's 1,000-year reign would begin in the year 2000. The world will be devastated by AIDS in the year 2000, according to Indian guru Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. Afterwards, the world will be rebuilt by a peaceful matriarchal society. William Cam, a.k. Little Pebble, is that a reference to the size of his brain, I wonder? Is the leader of the Australian doomsday cult, Order of St. Charbel. He predicts that a comet will destroy the Earth before the dawn of the new millennium. And I guess they're cutting him some slack here, because if he may well think that the new millennium is dawning in 2000 and not in 2001. Fundamentalist conspiracy advocate and local Texas resident Texie Mars stated that the last days could wrap up by the year 2000. Once again, leaving himself that out with the use of the word could. Yeah, and monkeys could fly out my butt. Members of the Stella Maris Gnostic Church, a Colombian doomsday cult, went into Colombia's Sierra Nevada mountains over the weekend of July 3 and 4, 1999 weekend to be picked up by a UFO that would save them from the end of the world, which is to take place at the turn of the millennium. Once again,
are they still there?
The pretend millennium.
Do you have to cut your balls off and wear gray pajamas?
The cult members have disappeared. Oh. Perhaps they were picked up by aliens, according to the BBC News.
And then Amanda asked about being castrated. And
so do you have to cut your balls off and wear the gray pajamas, too?
That's a different cult.
Oh, okay.
A radical apocalyptic sect emerged in the early 18th century France, the Convulsionaries. One of the members, Jacques-Joseph Duguay, anticipated the Perusia in 2000. I guess Perusia is some kind of apocalypse. They don't explain. Timothy Dwight, 1752 to 1817, president of Yale University, foresaw the millennium starting by 2000. Now, wait a minute.
Well, that one's true.
Yeah, I predict the millennium is definitely going to arrive by the year 2000.
That's why he's the president of Yale.
Martin Luther looked at the year 2000 as a possible end times date before finally setting on the year 1600. I guess I could already mark him. Let's just mark him failed. Okay. Sukyo Maki Hari, a Japanese cult, preaches that the world might be destroyed in a baptism of fire by 2000. Might, once again. A Vietnamese cult headed by Ka Van Liang predicted an apocalyptic flood for 2000, but doomsday came much earlier for the cult members. He and his followers already committed mass suicide in October 1993, according to the Cult Observer Archives. We got Joe. You want to? I got specifically the January 1 ones left. You want to go to Joe first? Or should I finish?
It's up to you.
I'll finish. January 1. This is specifically supposed to happen on the 1st. The January 1 is a favorite doomsday date. There just seems to be something about this date that inspires both hope and dread. For centuries, this date has symbolized the future. It has represented everything from the dawning of a new age of enlightenment to the destruction of the world and life as we know it. This date has become a kind of universal deadline. How many times have we heard the phrase, by the year 2000? Well, we just heard that several times. Christian apocalyptic cult House of Prayer, headed by one Brother David, expects Christ to descend onto the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem on this day. The Israeli government recently kicked them out of the country in a preemptive strike against potentially violent doomsday nutcases who may attempt to catalyze the apocalypse through terrorist acts such as blowing up the Dome of the Rock. The so-called Millennium bug will result in a massive computer outage on 1/1/2000 caused by the fact that in the good old days of yore, many COBOL programmers decided to save a bit of memory by using only 2 digits to encode a year in the date fields. Obviously, when 00 rolls around, these programs will think that it is January 1, 1900, and every algorithm that relies on a date sort routine will fail. Some fundamentalist preachers go so far as to mix the technological Y2K problem with scriptural prophecy, saying that Y2K is all part of God's plan, or that the Antichrist will use the chaos brought about by these computer failures in order to seize power. It should be noted that very few of these doom and gloom purveyors are actually programmers. Those who are involved with these systems on a daily basis tend to suspect that while there may be widespread outages and related problems, the worst that will happen is that a whole host of unlucky nerds will have to pull several all-nighters in front of their terminals, but it will get fixed. Gary North, founder of the Christian Reconstruction Group, has taken the Y2K bug to a whole new level of hysteria. Gary is convinced that global economic chaos will result from a worldwide collapse of financial computer systems. Of course, the more cynical among us would note that North is famous for making equally hysterical but inevitably false predictions in the past. And that's today's Rapture report. Now, folks, keep your eyes open because a whole bunch of these get chalked off by the time our next show comes up. So if you see our next show, that just adds about a dozen more people to the list of the world's biggest nitwits.
And we will be hearing the sirens. But that reminded me, on the show there on 6 Minutes, they was talking to the woman. She has a camera that you can view over the web that is pointed out the Mount of Olives. Yeah. So you can watch. That's her plan. That's exactly what she said. Yeah. So she did make it.
Is she selling advertising on this website?
That's a good question. I didn't check out. I didn't check out the website. But the whole deal is, she thinks the whole world will be watching, and Jesus will come down, and the whole world will be able to witness the event because it's called the Messiah Cam. And
all right, I gotta write that down and look and check it out.
Yeah, so we will be checking that out between next week. And Amanda brought a bunch of stuff, so I do want to get to Manda, but Joe's on long distance here, and I appreciate Rose for holding on. We'll get you as quick as we can. But Joe,
Messiah Cam.
Yes.
Hey, Joe.
And, good morning, Joe.
It's great to hear from y'all again.
Thank you, Joe. Have you heard the good news?
By what now?
Have you heard the good news? We're on the internet.
Oh, you're on the internet.
Yeah, go to www.spring.net. And you'll see the video, you'll see the show on, and it updates the picture every 15 seconds, but the audio is going out live.
Okay, just spring.net, that's it?
Yeah, and eventually it's going to be on our web page. We're in the process of switching webmasters right now, and so eventually that'll be on our web page. But yeah, you have to check it out and let us know what you think of it.
Well, excellent. I'll do that right now.
And let all the folks out there in New Jersey know about this.
Wow,
yep.
I'll let them know.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Talking about Millennium Mania.
Yes.
I have a calendar here at American Atheist just put out called Millennium Mania.
We have one of these here in the studio.
Right.
I checked it out to see if there were other things there. It looks like all this information is coming from some of the same sources.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you haven't already read a couple of these little notes here, but one of them, Cotton Mather, predicted that 1716 was the year that Jesus was coming back, and then of course 1736 was his second attempt. But
Right.
then we also have Charles Wesley, founder of Methodism. He said that 1794 was the magical year. And then we have Martin Luther thought that 1600 was going to be it.
Yeah, we talked about
Got that one.
Oh, okay, great. Well, then y'all have got those. Then there's one quote, and I hope y'all haven't read it. This
Sure.
is by J. Gordon Melton, head of the Institute for the Study of American Religion. And he says, quote, "Everyone who predicted the end of the world has had one thing in common. They were all wrong." And of course we can say that every day. Everybody
Yeah.
who predicted the world would be destroyed by today has been wrong so far, and that is thousands, if not millions of people.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't actually gone much into some of the old failed predictions. I rattled off a list of dates that had been predicted at one point.
Okay.
But yeah, we should definitely get into that.
We need you to speak up. We're just barely hearing you, Joe, by the way.
Yeah, I am long distance from way up here, and so I just had one more thing, a joke.
Sure.
Okay, you ready for a joke?
Sure.
There was a nun whose worn-out body began to surrender. Her doctor prescribed for her a shot of whiskey 3 times a day to relax her. Not to be lured into worldly pleasures, she huffily declined. But the Mother Superior knew the elderly sister loved milk, so she instructed the kitchen to spike the milk 3 times a day with whiskey. After a few more years, even that spiked milk couldn't help the aged sister approaching her final hour. As several nuns gathered around her at her bedside, the Mother Superior asked if she wanted to leave them with any words of wisdom. And she said, "Oh yes, never sell that cow." Alright. Okay, I feel good. I'm gonna, I guess I can just watch you online instead of hanging up then.
Yeah. Get us online there and see what you think. Give us some emails or call us and let us know how it looks.
Apparently, they didn't hear Joe at all on the air.
So you missed a cow joke out there, sorry.
Oh, sorry about that, Joe. We'll repeat that again.
We're having all kinds of technical problems this morning. Sorry, folks.
No problem. Well, I see
And we
you
can't blame it on Y2K because it hasn't happened yet.
Right. Well, I see you online, so this is great. I'll just watch this then.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Thanks for calling, Joe.
Thank you. See you.
Bye. Let's do Rose real quick. She's been hanging on all that time. Rose?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Rose.
Appreciate you hanging on.
Oh, thank you. I've got a couple of comments I'd like to make.
Okay.
One is, it's funny how all these people that are Bible believers, Christians, can predict the end of the world, when if they looked in Revelation it says nobody knows when it's coming.
Yeah.
Good point.
And that's from my growing up days. I'm not saying that that's my belief anymore. But the other thing that I want to comment on is this about the job training programs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Being a state worker in job training programs for a state agency,
Yeah.
it really ticks me off royally, because if there are federal funds involved, they are up the creek, because that is highly illegal, and
It's
anybody, anywhere, can be fired for doing so.
Was that state funds or federal funds?
I believe it said state funds, but what I'm saying
Yeah.
is, if
No, it's equally unconstitutional.
exactly, and if there is any way that they're not mentioning federal funds, and federal funds are being used in the same situation, then that is very highly illegal.
My understanding is that there are federal funds going to places that are going ahead and proselytizing while spending that money.
Oh, I wish I were a monitor.
I need to collect specific examples, but that is my understanding.
Okay, I was just checking on that, because I work in the dislocated worker programs for the state, and we are number one. It's we could be fired for doing so.
Yeah, for having the Bible as a required reading. There was no way that you'd be able to do that, right?
That's right. That's right. That is not an educational job training curriculum. It's not certified by the federal government or the state, or it's not supposed to be. And there are so many things that they have to go through to become certified to do the...
Excellent point there. It doesn't say whether what the process that went through for this church to be certified to get this money or whatever else. Is there supposed to be a certification process?
That is my understanding, and I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go back and do more checking on it for you guys through the Workforce Investment Act.
I appreciate that.
I do believe that's where part this comes from, but I want to make sure before I say, yes, that is where these funds are coming from. But I know that part of it is under the welfare, which is also federally funded.
Ma'am, just a second. David, I can't hear you, and I can't read what you're writing.
Tell her it's the Ashcroft Amendment that allows it.
The Ashcroft Amendment, that's a federal amendment?
That's an amendment to welfare laws. Just go to John Ashcroft's website in D.C. and
Okay. David Bagley's telling us that there's something called the Ashcroft Amendment is what allows federal funds to be used for social programs where there is proselytizing going on.
Okay.
I appreciate you calling, ma'am. And
thank you, David.
And any information you can give us, that'd be fantastic. Call our voicemail or call us here on the show with any updates. We'll be sure and put those out on the air.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
have a great week.
I want to add something else
Sure,
here.
go right ahead.
Yeah, she brought up the point about how in the Bible it says, nobody will be able to predict the end, and yet they try anyway. And they it's all about excusing your failures when they don't happen too, because then they say, well, don't blame me that I was wrong. The Bible says that I couldn't successfully predict it, but they try anyway. Well, the Bible also says something about people that claim that things are going to happen and then those things don't happen. They have a phrase for that. It's called false prophets, and every single one of these people that predicts an apocalypse or end time or return of Jesus or anything at a certain date and it doesn't happen, they need to be labeled false prophets, because that's what they are.
Good point. All right, to remind everyone, this is December 26th. We are coming at you live. We want to take your phone calls. But now I want to give Amanda some time here. She brought a bunch of stuff in with, and
Can we get close-ups on any of this art that Amanda made for us?
First I brought my New Year's resolutions, and I want to share with the city here, all you atheists out there. Number one was volunteer. I'm going to try to volunteer more. I'm not going to give blood. I'm too small. I pass out when it happens. You could hang me by my toes. Yeah, Jeff won't let me. But all too often we're alienated from charities by religions trying to take credit for kindness. Alcoholics Anonymous, in my opinion, trades dependence on superstition for dependence on drinking. And hospitals receiving government funding hang a cross in every room. Salvation Army will only feed people who attend services. Habitat for Humanity starts and ends a house raising with a prayer. Us atheist community groups should get a little slack for not organizing and doing this kind of thing before. It's only been a few centuries since free thinkers stopped being executed for heresy, but it's time for us to get involved too, and our group is doing that. My second was try to get people more computer access. I'm going to volunteer. One of the things I want to volunteer is as a tutor at the public libraries, because if you don't have computer access, you can go to a public library, learn how to use it, and enjoy it. You can get free email without having an account on one of the local providers and paying for it. You can get it for free. And I don't want us to become the nation of computer haves and computer have-nots.
Excellent.
The third one I've got is think about my prejudices in the upcoming election. This is a country with a lot of prejudice, and it's not under the surface, it's right in our laps, right in our faces. When did we have a black president? When did we have a woman president? 1 out of 2 people is a woman, and we don't have a woman president yet. That's prejudice. Keep in mind that churches sometimes have voter guides. As long as they don't say who to vote for, they can maintain their tax-exempt status. That's why we have to be kind of careful not to say, don't vote for them or do vote for them. But we can present facts,
Exactly.
That's the one thing we can do. I'm going to try to work real hard. I'd started this year, but I'm going to work even harder. Spreading concepts of logic. Logic is what lets us think together. Logic is what makes the difference between shutting your brain and saying, that's just your opinion, and keeping an open mind and challenging others to explain their views. If you challenge somebody to explain themselves, you're listening to them. The next resolution, I hope that you all join me in this, is find out for yourself. Before you can think for yourself, you need to find out for yourself. Logic isn't enough, and what you learned in school could be very limited compared to what's known now. And my last one on this is celebrate reality. I'm going to celebrate reality. I'm glad you brought some science stuff, Jeff, because that's a lot better than somebody said something really wacky in politics or amongst the clergy. I'm much happier to hear about the Hubble telescope. When you see the stars at night, I wrote, appreciate that this is the truth of where you are and what you are, a physically small being on a blue sphere orbiting a yellow star in a galaxy in which billions of stars associate, and galaxies, we learned this not that long ago through the Hubble, are more plentiful than particles of sand, particles of flour. There's more galaxies than there are bits of sand.
On the Earth.
On the Earth. That's a lot of sand. Think about that.
Yeah.
So, go to the Austin Zoo, go to the Museum of Natural History on UT, go to Snake Farm over by San Antonio, go to Zilker Park, and look at the watershed and caves display that they've got there. That's kind of fun. Go to Bull Creek Park, you know, on the creek and by the bridge, the Percy V. Pennywhacker Bridge, and get around to watching the bats under the Congress Street Bridge. They come once a year, they stay there for a while, and then they go back. How many times has somebody said to you, you know, there's those bats out there, but you never went?
Excellent. Those are a great idea. Because I hadn't really thought much about my resolutions this year, but I still got a few days. So,
Yeah.
But that was excellent. Yes.
Thanks.
And you also brought some great artwork here.
Oh, these are for decorating the set.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the coelacanth.
Can we get
Can
close
you
up?
get a picture of the fishy?
Over here.
That's our fishy.
That they thought was extinct for years, and then they found it.
We had.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we
Sure.
had fossils of fish called lobe-fin fishes. The lobe-fin fishes are very similar to the tailed amphibians. So they're a transitional form, and we thought that they were all gone, and then sometime during the 60s, some fishermen in Africa dredged one of these up. So this is a living transitional form, or a relative of the Eusthenopteron, which is said to be the ancestor of all the vertebrates, all the quadruped vertebrates.
Good.
And the other guy, that's a hoatzin. A hoatzin is a South American bird. This is another living creature. Until it's about 7 weeks old, it's got 2 claws on each of its wings. And then the claws get worn out and they drop off. This creature is genetically analyzed, has been determined to be in the cuckoo family. And what you're hearing is another bird recently classified in the cuckoo family, the roadrunner. You'll see roadrunners in Wild Creek area. You'll see them in Wild Basin. The roadrunner is a relatively primitive creature, and it's got long running legs, something that we found on the third thing I brought. Can you show the
There you go.
thing here? That's a Caudipteryx zooey. Well,
I think we'd be better off with camera 3 on that.
can we get that?
So it's looking good. 3 is busy right now.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Stop. Go ahead.
The reason it says 1998 on his neck there, that's the year that this fossil was discovered. We didn't find just one. We found a couple of them. Some people in China did. And it was partly funded by National Geographic, the study. So there's some really good articles in National Geographic, or you can find it online. The Caudipteryx zooey is kind of a dinosaur, kind of a bird. It's got the feathers of a bird. It's got 4 small teeth on the end of its face. Can you zoom in on its head?
I'll do it. No, I'll do it.
Okay. And the hoatzin bird that loses its claws, the one behind me here, has 2 claws. This guy in the fossil has 3 claws. And you can look at his face. His face looks kind of like a vulture, or kind of like a hoatzin face. His toes all point forwards. That makes him more dinosaur-like. His tail's obviously more like your Jurassic Park dino. And you'll notice there's feathers there. Yes, the fossil did have feathers. They're very clear. I was able to make this reconstruction picture from photographs of the fossils. There you can see his thumb claws pointing forwards. There are primitive birds that have that arrangement. And one of the things that's a detail of how we place this in a lineage, in a taxonomic tree, is the number of bones in the fingers.
Right. Yeah, I was just going to ask, are we seeing fingers here on his wings?
Yeah, that's what those are.
Here?
The formula for the bones is 2, 3, 4. Now the formula for the bones in our fingers is 2, 3, 3, 3, 3. The Hoatzin is just 2, 3. But you would expect that if one was ancestral to the other, there'd be a good chance that they would match up that way.
Right.
You know, bats have a different formula that doesn't match up, and other creatures with claws on their wings have different numbers of bones. But we've got dinosaurs, and then later this fossil, and then bird fossils coming later. The fact that they're in sequence is one more clue. The lengths of the bones are being recorded on computer. And now, when they compare two fossils to guess, are these related, they've got hundreds and hundreds of measurements of relatively complete bone fragments. So it's not just guessing from, oh look, this has a bird-like head. There's a lot of information going into it.
Cool.
Yes, and lots of study, and a lot of publication and peer review, so that other scientists all over the world can then evaluate their own, the results and conclusions that these scientists have come to are constantly being reviewed with the new fossils that we find that we think are. Then they'll compare them and everything else.
Yeah.
You want to go to Mary here real quick?
Sure.
Yeah. Mary?
Hello.
Good morning.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Mary.
All I know is I got a lot of loot this year.
Did you? Well, nothing wrong with that. Money's always good.
Yeah, well, I got some of that, too.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to call it Christmas because they said it was Christmas, and if Christmas gets them to give me that many presents, Christmas is okay by me.
There you go.
It's a perfectly fine secular holiday, Mary.
Right, and it doesn't have to do with anybody's birth. It's just a day of giving presents.
There you go.
It was great. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you guys. Did anybody see Cosmic Safari this week on TLC?
I caught the end of that. Excellent show.
Oh, it was great. And that's why one of Manda's resolutions was to get rid of prejudice.
Right.
I've always felt intuitively that prejudice was anti-evolutionary, and this show, Cosmic Safari, demonstrated why that was. Okay, there's life on other planets, period, okay? There's gotta be. I mean, there's just too many of them for us to say that we're the only ones.
Okay.
But the prejudice comes in where it's going to respond to physical laws that are so different from ours that it's not going to look like anything we recognize as life, okay?
The physical laws aren't different, but the environments are different.
Well, evolution is the same.
Right.
That's the constant through the universe is evolutionary factors, and that responds to physical laws. But it's going to be so different that we're not going to be able to recognize it as life.
Yeah, for those people who don't know what we're talking about, this show, Cosmic Safari, uses very well done computer graphics.
Yeah.
Not quite Jurassic Park level, but very nice computer graphics to make these animations of realistic looking alien creatures that you might expect to find in some unusual environments on other planets.
Yeah, like
and it was just really well done.
Atmospheres can have like a level of atmosphere where life can exist, where there's no poison, and they look like balloons, okay?
Yeah.
We wouldn't even recognize that as life. But the prejudice part comes in. If you're a prejudiced person, you won't be able to recognize this as life that has to be respected and revered, as all life does, okay? And that's where I learned that prejudice was anti-evolutionary. But I figured it out intuitively from, I'm going to say it, I learned it from drugs. Okay? Drugs, I learned that prejudice was anti-evolutionary. There's a hard core of radical scientists that say that hallucinogenic drugs
Right.
move evolution along because they help people think outside the box, okay? And I believe that, and I'll stand up for that against everybody, even atheists. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, Mary,
Yes.
how you think really has nothing to do with evolution. That's what's going on inside your brain, right?
Yeah.
How the brain, what selection pressures in your environment have to do with evolution. And drugs.
Moving along, and the requirements are changing because physically we are as evolved as we're going to get. Okay, there's no physical improvements that we can make to live better in our life.
Yeah.
Our problem is in our heads. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think that drugs are an awfully crude way of tinkering with these incredibly complicated brains we've got.
Jeff,
Huh?
I'm saying it didn't make the whole trip real smooth. What it did was it opened a door that wasn't open before.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry that's what it took. I mean.
Well, I'm not because I'm here.
Okay.
It didn't really do me any harm because I got a pretty good head and I survived it. The reason I survived it, and I have to say this too, okay, is that there's nothing inside me that anyone or myself has to be afraid of, and that's why it was safe for me. Is because I don't have any demons to deal with, but it opened the door. Have you read The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley?
I've heard and read bits and pieces. I haven't read the whole book.
Well, the book isn't all right because I think even he believed in God. But there are things in there about the organic hallucinogens that tie in perfectly. Because look, Aldous Huxley thought outside the box, okay? And that alone, to get away from the mainstream thinking, to get out of the mainstream thinking, to me is worth any cost.
Yeah.
And I will do anything.
All right. It just kind of bugs me because I remember being in high school and drawing like pictures of weird monsters and stuff, and having other kids in my school come to me and say, "Man, what kind of drugs are you on?"
Well, that was their ignorance.
Here I am thinking outside the box, right? And having people tell me, you couldn't possibly be imaginative like that on your own. You must have used some kind of chemicals to loosen you up like that. I just don't think that's true.
Well, it's because they can't think outside the box, okay?
Yeah.
It's not your problem. There's just been too much judgment about them, and I feel like too much has been lost because of it, because we haven't let a few people be brave and listen to them about where they went. And I went in a place where I found out that I'm an okay person, and it was worth.
Well, we're glad you think you're an okay person. We think you're an okay person.
I don't just think it, I am.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah, but Mary, drugs, the one thing we kind of do know about putting chemicals in your brain is that the drugs that you could take from herbs and things is pretty crude. It's like taking a sledgehammer, and you can put a sledgehammer upside somebody's head, and they'll think outside the box all right. But does it have to be that violent? Should it be something that you just got on the street, cut with mashed potatoes or drain cleaner? Does it have to be something that was pulled up in the garden that you don't know what the concentration was? You know, this is something that, if there's something to it, let's have some research. I'm going to play chicken because I don't think I have a soul. I think I'm the things going on in my head, and there's nothing more precious to me, to my existence, than my mind.
Exactly. But I'm not. I have to not be afraid because I have to get out of the mainstream thinking. I had to find my own way, and I did. But it wasn't violent for me. It wasn't. It was like.
Okay.
Mostly it was like teddy bear picnics. I'm sorry, but it just came from what was inside me. Well, we'll have a good year. It's going to be as good as we make it.
Sure.
You're right.
Thanks for calling, Mary.
You have a great week.
Matt, is there anything we can do to deal with that
Noise?
horrible noise we're getting over the phones? What is up with that?
Yeah, I hope this sounds better on TV than it does in here.
Me and Brian were chatting about that. It's possible it's the phone line. It might not be the studio.
So,
because we had one call earlier that was fine.
Can we tell if that's going out on the air like that? Because it really, it is going out on the air like that?
It is.
We're sorry, folks.
It's
terrible.
Well, let's go back to Amanda. Yes, I wanted to give you.
Oh, well,
Are you done?
what should I say?
Oh, I thought you had more. What'd you bring the box?
Oh, we're thinking outside the box here. This was inspired by kind of a joke that I read.
Okay.
Somebody did Boardroom Bingo, and
Great.
Boardroom Bingo is this game where the buzzwords from a company were put on bingo cards, and the people who were really bored would go to the meetings, and anytime this common concept or word was mentioned, they'd quietly mark it off, and then they would like use their pagers to signal who had won, and they would take little bets and things. And this is ACA show bingo. Yeah. It starts off as a little deck of 30 cards, and the cards say things like Hitler or the Nazis, or let's see, science is a religion, or Occam's razor or common sense. And these are words and concepts. And the way the game is played is you lay the cards out in a little square from left to right and then from top to bottom, so that everybody who has the same deck will have a different layout. And then you sit around and you watch this show and you put counters. I think you should have
Coins
30. You should have 30
glass
coins to
beads
play
or
this.
30 coins.
Yeah. And well, I'm going to make that available for a nominal fee to people who come to the bagel shop. They can buy a copy of ACA Bingo. And I'm also going to do the flashcards, logical fallacy flashcards.
And we got to watch what you were saying about selling stuff there.
And we could consider it a premium, maybe. We don't know what we'll do with this yet.
Yeah, we got
free when you make a donation. That's how you.
We're discussing the possibility
like
of selling it. This is just a new idea, and we're but it's HCTV. You gotta be careful about what you say. Sorry, I didn't.
Okay.
When I brought it up, I didn't realize what I was bringing up there. Sorry.
Well.
Thank you.
Well, for people who haven't seen this show before, once upon a time, like a couple months ago, Jeff was doing a segment that was how to do critical thinking. It was spotters and pointers on how to think more sharply. It was something that became very clear to me that it wasn't common sense. It didn't get handed to me by my mom or dad, and my mom and dad were pretty smart, but these things never occurred to them, and these are the things that you can pass on to younger people. Here's an example. Logical fallacy number 3, the slippery slope. A chain of increasingly worse but not inevitable events. And the example I give is, if you buy a lottery ticket, you'll start betting on poker and racehorses. Eventually you'll have to steal to pay your debts. That's
and these
the
are
slippery
also
slope
on
argument.
little cards like your game and
yeah.
I see the lights are working, so I hope we're getting some callers coming through here. It is December 26th. I'd like to hear how you spent Christmas. Jeff was talking about you went out and got recognized and all that.
Yeah.
I actually went out and got drunk Christmas Eve, so I was hungover Christmas Day.
Did you get any cool gifts?
Cool gifts? Nothing worth bragging about, huh?
Well, I was talking about going to the Aquabats concert.
Yes, you got the
last
poster.
time.
Yes.
Manda, while we were there, my darling wife snuck away, saying that she was going to the bathroom. She went to the people that ran the club and she got the Aquabats tour poster for me, and that was my coolest gift for the holidays.
All right, we have someone on the line here. Let's go with Dale.
Hey, Ray, what's going on?
Hey, not much.
Are you guys calling KLBJ all the time?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was you the guy that ate the piss gum.
Yes, I didn't eat it.
Man.
What?
I'll tell you about that later.
Oh, man. Well, we're praying for you.
Is that it? Is that how you wanted to call?
It was a drive-by prayer.
A drive-by prayer, yes. I see. Just remind everyone, this is December 26th. Yes, I'm also known as the Atheist on the KLBJ Morning Show. And the regular viewers at KLBJ. Viewers, it's a radio show. Any of the listeners to the morning show, also known as Mr. Clean.
Kind of slow this morning. People must be hungover from the holidays.
Yes. I see we have Jimmy on the line. Let's try it. Jimmy.
Hi, how you guys doing today? And ladies.
Fantastic.
Hi, Jimmy.
Yeah, I just wanted to find out what you guys, what's your perspective on psychotropic plants. I know that in South American rainforest, you got the medicine man that's taking these plants and claiming to have spiritual experiences. And I was just wondering, is that genuine, or is that just a chemical reaction?
Is what genuine?
His spiritual experiences.
Well, what do you mean by spiritual? Right? I mean, if spiritual means, you talk with actual existing, like, supernatural ghosts or something wafting around without bodies and things like that, that's almost certainly just a imaginary, side effect of weird brain chemistry.
Okay, well, there's this drug called ayahuasca, or a plant, or a vine down in, I guess in the rainforest called ayahuasca. I don't know if you ever read about it, or...
That's a new one on me.
Yeah, well, apparently what happens is the elders of the tribe eat these vines and claim to have divine knowledge come into them after they eat it, and pass on this wisdom to their tribal members.
Right. This has been going on for centuries. There's several religions, and we have documented history of several doing this, and then present-day scientists can reproduce just about all this in the lab. Sometimes they can do it with just there's a new study with just doing it with electrical magnetic waves, high intensity.
Yeah, that was that. In that they put a thing on your helmet on your head, and it interferes with with the electrical balance in your brain, and you get the sensation of leaving your body or meeting supernatural beings and things.
See, so it's just all natural reactions to the body's natural reactions to say either chemicals or electrical stimulation. In that case, magnetic.
Yeah.
So but it just shows again.
Well, again, that's not Bible stuff. I mean, that's just out there in the wilderness. These people have never even heard of a Bible, and they're already doing this stuff that what Jesus has already been doing.
What are you talking about?
Years before he's been.
Right. I'm sure they found it by accident. That somebody ate it and saw visions and decided to use. This must be God. Whatever else. It's just through natural.
Is that God, or is that just a hallucination?
That
would be a hallucination.
I thought we'd established that. I'm sorry.
How do you know unless you've never tried it?
What is? No, wait a minute.
If you go ahead and take this vine, ayahuasca,
yeah.
Just say they made it legal in the United States and you ate some of it.
Yeah.
And then after you had your trip, are you going to come back here and say it's still a hallucination, or is that a real divine?
I would hope so. Because the definition of a hallucination is something that just happens in your head. Right? And if that's where it happens, that's what it is. I mean, when one of these hallucinations comes out of somebody's head and walks down the street and gets photographed or whatever, there's any kind of independent confirmation of its existence, then we're talking about something that might be real. But that different people can take a particular chemical and get similar experiences. Well, big surprise.
It's the same difference as the people that go into a trance and talk in tongues and say they're talking to God or whatever.
Well, you don't believe that either, I guess, huh?
Exactly.
Why should we?
There's no proof of that either. So
I believe that there's so many accounts written in library books and whatnot of these experiences being genuine. I just don't see how you can ignore that.
Well, what do you call genuine? So far, all we have in common between these experiences is people do something and then make claims. In Close Encounters, the guy thinks that space aliens are coming, and then he builds a big mountain in the living room. His wife leaves him. He loses his kids, he loses his job, he loses everything. But in the end, he's the hero because he's right. But up until the point when we really have space aliens here, I'm afraid that the most reasonable thing is to treat the guy like he's nuts. If somebody says, I have special wisdom from beyond, you ask yourself, what are they selling you? Are they just, there's a big formula. Do something to get attention, like rolling on the ground, in convulsions, or smoke something and give it to your friend to impress him with how weird it is, how weird the experience is, it still isn't proof of anything, except something happens in your head.
Well, that explanation you just gave now, ma'am, I believe is relatively new in human history. That probably just came out since Freud, but, what happened all the time before Freud?
What about it?
Well,
I mean, people didn't just suddenly become susceptible to chemical effects from drugs recently. That's been going on forever, and they've been coming up with explanations for it forever.
The point I was going to...
You said something earlier about supernatural knowledge. I forget exactly how you put it. When one of these shamans takes a mushroom and then solves difficult mathematical equations, or comes up with some kind of knowledge that can be tested, that can be verified, that is clearly something that they really found out, that isn't just, I saw the great elk spirit or whatever, when some tangible positive results come from it, that's the time to start seriously thinking something might be going on. But that people can take chemicals and have it affect their brain chemistry, and then they experience weird things, is no big surprise.
Okay. All right. Well, you have a great week. But I do have a point I want to make, though, but I want to let you go. You have a great week.
Thanks for calling.
Because I got to sneeze. Here, hang on. I thought I was going to sneeze.
All these guys buy more cocaine in a week than Robert Tilton Ministries.
Wow. I don't know where that came from. That's great, Arnold. The point I was going to make was personal antidote is the worst evidence out there. It won't stand up on any scientific test whatsoever. We have structured ways of going in there and proving something happened or it didn't. And personal antidote is not one of them. That is the worst.
Anecdote.
No, I'm saying it wrong, ain't I?
Anecdote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, 1,000 personal anecdotes are worth no more than one personal anecdote. 10,000 personal anecdotes are worth no more than one anecdote. And one personal anecdote ain't worth much.
I think that people get confused about this because they're used to watching, courtroom dramas on TV where testimony is considered to be in and of itself, compelling. But I don't know the legalities of that. Maybe we got lawyers watching that can straighten this out. But I'm betting if you had a situation where 4 people come in and say this one guy stole $1 million from us, so send him to jail, they would ask, where's the evidence that any money was taken at all?
Right.
Testimony by itself can only, at best, tell you there's something that might be worth investigating.
Exactly.
But it's the actual evidence, right? Bank accounts missing money, right? Sudden huge expenditures by the guy that was supposed to have stolen the money. That, actual traceable evidence, that's the basis on which these things are determined. You got to get testimony because it involves human beings. Human beings are the people that come up with all these ideas, and they say stuff about them, so testimony is always involved. But that does not make it equal to proof.
Excellent point there. We got a few minutes to kill here, and
some of that video?
No, what I was going to say, we were discussing this Cassie Bernall.
Oh gosh!
Again, before the show here.
Yeah.
And you brought up the wonderful comparison about how people wouldn't say something that wasn't true. And here we have documented proof that this girl never said that, and there is hundreds of people out there, websites devoted to this story.
Money being made off of this.
And money being made from this story. It's just a wonderful comparison there.
That's right.
In the Jesus myth.
Any Christian that comes to you and says, the Bible must be true because why would they lie? Point them at the Cassie Bernall situation. Exactly. Because the person that reported that she said this has retracted it. He was taken back into the school. He pointed to the table where she was supposed to have been, and then the investigator said, "Well, I'm sorry, son. She really was under this other table." So,
And then who else?
It is absolutely not true that Cassie Bernall said what this kid reported. And yet, because it makes an effective money-making way of proselytizing, you got all these people making money off of it and using it. And I'll assume that some of them are not doing it for money. Some of them are just doing it because it's a compelling story, and what they really want is they want more people to come and join their religion.
It's not just a compelling story that way.
They're latching onto this story that isn't true and promoting it, even though it is absolutely certain that it's not true and has been proven that it's not true. They don't care.
Well, look at the psychology behind it. The reason people want to believe the story is the wishful thinking that there was some point to their death. The wishful thinking that there was some sense to this when it wasn't.
Yeah,
it was
that's
just
why
some
it's
senseless
compelling.
killing.
But why they latch onto it and won't let go, even after it's been disproven, is because it's effective at making money and at attracting converts.
And we have pretty much the same historical circumstances in the first century. We have historical proof of people, even though the Christianity was a banned religion, they were making money selling trinkets and souvenirs then and taking tours.
Why get supposedly so spiritual if there's no market for it?
Exactly. They were making money on the very first century on this. So it just, and the parallels are just amazing, and I didn't really put the parallels together that strong until we were discussing it this morning.
Even assuming that there are people who are really believe their religion, and what they want is they really want to attract converts to their religion, those people are also spreading this lie for the sake of what they're trying to accomplish, even when there's not money in it. Why would they lie? Because it's effective. Because sometimes compelling lies are effective at achieving whatever it is you're trying to achieve. Be it pocketing some money on Cassie Bernall t-shirts or filling your pews up with high school students who think they need to turn to God because they might get shot, even though our schools are still safer than our streets.
So with all the lawsuits involved and everything else, now that videotape is released, from what I understand, the parents are now suing the sheriff, and that Columbine story is going to be around with us for several years to come.
Yeah.
And the crazy part about it is, from what I understand, that there's actually lawsuits from the survivors that weren't even wounded. They were just in the building at the same time.
Right.
So they're for mental anguish, everybody's getting in line to sue. And I was amazed that the videotape was released the way it was.
Has it been released? All I know is they let reporters from Time Magazine see it.
Right.
They didn't walk off with copies.
No. Good point. And I would think that the school actually owns the tape, and since it was
there was school video from their security cameras, and then there were the tapes that the shooters made
exactly themselves, right?
Which would belong to the parents, except that the police have taken them as evidence. So who knows what's going on?
But so some other interesting news. I was channel surfing and watching, and they still trying to come up with some scientific explanation for the Star of Bethlehem, and which they do it every year, and so I love watching. So this astronomer says he came up with a date of April 14th, 6 BC, as a conjuncture with Saturn. Which I've heard this story before about but supposedly this conjuncture is so in such an alignment that he hasn't been able to find anywhere else that comes close to the exact same alignment. So that's pretty interesting that it goes all the way back to 6
but no matter what, it doesn't matter. If it was any kind of thing out in space, if it was stars, you simply can't follow a star to a particular stable in a particular town. It can't be done. It just doesn't work.
But there's a whole
a low-flying aircraft maybe. But so if the UFO nuts want to get a hold of that, and of course they have, they can play that game. But
there's a group of people that are actually traveling from where they think the Magi came. So there's the journey of the Magi. So there's a whole group of them They're traveling like the 1,200 miles. They started back in September, and it was supposed to arrive on Christmas morning to the exact spot there and all that. It was an interesting story.
And somebody's making money off of that too.
Yeah.
You know, if they're so wise, how come these wise men are bringing a baby, frankincense and myrrh? I think Jesus would rather have had a nice ball, a rattle, a little cup, some silverware, a little spoon.
Box of Pampers.
Yeah.
All right, let's try to get one more phone call in before we leave here. Michelle?
Hey, Ray.
Is this our Michelle?
Yeah, it is. Hi, how are you guys doing? I like the Pampers idea. That's a great thing for babies.
So, how are we sounding on the air? We're having difficulty with the phones in here.
Sometimes it's better than others. Sometimes there's like a echo where the voice comes across kind of crackly, but in general it's been okay.
Okay, that's good because you really sound bad in here. Sorry.
Well, thank you. I have a cold too, but.
Oh no, it's it's the speaker keeps cutting in and out. It's not your voice.
It's down on the air too. You can lose bits and pieces of the sound. Anyway, talking of weirdos, I just wanted to talk about the guy who called about taking drugs and having.
Oh sure, go right ahead.
Spiritual experiences. And he was implying that because people have taken drugs have had similar experiences that it must be real.
Good point.
And I just wanted to make the point that, okay, human brains have the same biochemistry.
Right.
So why is it unusual that given certain drugs, people would have the same reaction in their brain?
Right.
It doesn't mean that the experience was real. It just means that drug has that effect on a human brain.
Right.
And I just wanted to make that point.
I appreciate that.
And I won't see you at Bagels, but I'll probably see you next week.
Okay, Michelle. Thanks for calling.
Bye-bye.
And good point.
You have a great week.
Understand this, my brother. I'm in a dimension that few people understand it.
I always laugh when
Let's
that
take
comes
this last
on.
guy.
All right, one more call. Chris?
How you doing?
Hey, Chris.
Fantastic.
Hi, Chris.
Great. Hey, listen, I wanted to ask a question that has nothing to do with the atheist community of Austin.
All right.
Why the suspenders?
What?
Every show
Why the suspenders?
I mean, they look good, but, it's like,
Do I need a better reason than that?
I guess not. Listen, do you ever consider, like, the reasoning behind being on Sundays would be really good because, imagine if you were on any other time of day, like late Sundays perhaps or another day, you would have all of these crazy zealots at church.
Oh, we get enough anyway.
Yeah, you do. Definitely. I always thought you could use the defense that, well, if they're getting too crazy that you could tell them, well, you should be in anyway. But
We had the guy that called and complained about our time slot because he has to stay home from church to watch our show.
Well, this is a show for atheists.
That
for atheists.
Our other thing was there's so much religious programming on Sunday morning.
Right. Oh, really? A good idea.
We wanted to give any atheist out there a choice.
Well, I tell you what, I'm really glad that you guys are doing the show. I've called once before, and I tell you what, kudos to you guys. I don't have the guts to go out there and do this sort of thing, and it's a great thing that you guys are doing every Sunday, and I really do appreciate it. And I think a lot of people in Austin and in the surrounding area probably appreciate it a lot more than you hear.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I was just wondering also, how do you put up with so many? You get people that call with such ridiculous claims, and I mean, doesn't it wear on you after a while?
So it does after a while. That's part of the reason why I'm giving someone else this chair here. I'm giving the host to Jeff here starting next year there. So I'm going to move behind the camera because, I was getting kind of tired of the same stupid questions.
Yeah, you've been at this for what, 2 years?
Yeah, I've been doing this for 2 years.
This is not Ray's last show. You will be doing 2 more shows in January, right?
Yeah, we started January 11th.
And
January 9th will be my last show.
Okay, you're doing 1 more show in January.
Yeah, because I'm going to be gone next week.
Off on the 2nd. So, and then I'm sure we'll have Ray on again as a guest periodically.
Cool. All right, well, I just wanted to call and tell you that I appreciate you guys.
All right. Thanks very much. And,
and I want to say,
I want to say, when I first started attending the ACA meetings, Atheist Community of Austin, it was a bunch of frightened, timid little, people that really felt that if the Christians got wind of the fact that they were even meeting, they would burst in with machine guns and mow us all down. It's really not like that. There are loonies out there, but they're not as hostile as you would expect. And they're I'm sure there will be occasional tragedies in the future, just as there have been in the past, but it's not true that if you speak up about your atheism, you're taking your life in your hands. It's just not like that. So, speak out.
All right, we want to send out all of our atheist love out there to everyone there in Austin.
This is the fun part.
Are we still doing the love thing or no?
We'll just have to...
Whoa, that was weird. Wow!
There it is.
Good night. Goodbye.
We love you all, folks.